Eamon Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure to be in the company of Harlem Eubank, training away ahead of his fight date. Harlem, how you doing?
I'm great, man. I'm great. Um, Ready to go in there and put in a performance, and excited for my cousin to do the same tomorrow night.
We'll move into the most recent or most fast approaching Eubank outing. That is your cousin Chris Eubank Jr. taking on Conor Benn for the second time. A lot of conversation as there is whenever Eubank Jr. comes to the ring, but more so when Conor Benn or Ben is involved. Anyways, points of contention have been raised. But first of all, the weight has been made on both sides. Eubank Jr. has made or come inside the 160 limit. What do you think of that? What's changed in this time round for him to make the initial weight?
I think he agreed before the first fight. They signed for two fights, so I think that clause was in place from the first time round. Um, and I've said over and over again that dehydrating a fighter is isn't good. This is the fight game, and it's about going in there the best version of yourself. 160 I think is okay for Chris, but rehydration clauses. Chris is getting older now as well, so when you try and strip a fighter of their natural weight, it's you're not getting the best version of them in the ring. Um, Obviously Chris signed into something from the first fight, and I guess that nothing's changed the second time round, although he will be, he will have experience, obviously, with that first situation. So I think he'll have a better ability to make changes and go in there a stronger version of himself this time around.
I believe during the press conference, at least from a clip I saw, I can't remember where it was, otherwise I'd reference it appropriately, but I did see the Benz mention that from the rehydration the second time around, they believe that Chris didn't fully use the full limit and weighed maybe 7 pounds as opposed to the full 10 pounds that he could. From your knowledge, is that the case? Did Chris use the full rehydration clause? Because the argument is that he didn't need it if even though it was available.
He didn't. Sorry, I don't understand the question.
So the rehydration clause is at 170, but Chris only hydrated to 7 pounds of that 10 pounds. So could have hydrated further 3 pounds, but chose not to.
Sometimes it's not what you choose. You're mentally, if you have to get down to a certain weight, you can't get back up. You're
Mm.
monitoring it, so you obviously, you're trying to come in below a certain limit. There's guidelines in place. So, as a fighter, as a professional, you try and go below that. You try and, not meet that mark, because it's a fine line. If you're a few over, then obviously there's ridiculous fines in place, as we see the first time around.
The other thing was also that Eddie Hearn sort of got his get back, I think, with this Silent Night and the plaques, which I guess was a way to respond to Eubank Jr. not being able to, or not allowing Eddie to talk. What did you think of Eddie's response to Eubank Jr.?
Sorry, what was his response?
Did you see at the press conference with the placards that Eddie Hearn brought out? He was obviously Eubank Jr. wasn't allowing Eddie to speak during the first press conference, so instead Eddie remained silent but held up placards to make his point.
I didn't even notice the cards that he brought out, so I would say, if I didn't notice them, they probably wasn't very effective.
The other final point of contention I want to get to before we get into the fight talk is Eubank Sr. The allegation has been made that he's been paid to attend the fight as opposed to there to support his son. What have you made of those comments?
Crazy, absolutely, slanderous. Um, a man that, I think we can both agree brought some of the best entertainment to that night that the British, public have seen in a very long time. He brought into fruition a historic moment, a moment that he should have been rewarded for, but I know for a fact that he didn't take a penny. So, when you hear these type of things from the stance of, look at what he brought to the show, and for him not to be rewarded, and for then to for people to either be misinformed, as he said, people may not be lying, but someone may be lying to them. um and that's what it is. So, you know my uncle, he doesn't need to, he's not a man that lies, and he's not a man that cheats. He's very straight up about things, and if other people are misinformed, as he said, then people have lied to them.
In terms of the fight talk, how a lot of conversation is surrounding how Ben will be different and maybe take the emotion out of it, maybe he might box a little bit more. What about Chris, who now has Bomac in his corner? How is that going to change him approaching the fight when he can take confidence that it was a solid 116, 112 across all three judges, and he was there in the fight despite being having to adhere to a rehydration clause? How can he change or adapt in the second fight?
A lot, I think, a lot didn't go his way in the first fight, and still, he was very dominant in the fight. Um, Last time round, he wasn't used to, it's the first time with that rehydration clause in place. He didn't know what Ben presents. This time round, he knows exactly what he's got in front of him. Um, Last time round he was boxing very nicely until he got the cut, and then it all went to kind of just inside exchanges. Chris can do it all. He can box, he can fight, and this time round he's got the team in place that he had um, for one of his most dominant performances of recent times, which was the Liam Smith 2 fight. I've seen how he prepared for that fight, and I know his team will be, Bo Mack and them guys will be going to work. So I know he's really coming correct, and gonna present the true version of Chris that I think, if we would have seen last time, he gets Ben out of there within 6, 7 rounds.
Segueing this to yourself, Conor mentioned at the press conference that he this will be his final fight at 116. He's moving back down to 147. Does that open the door for potential fight between you and Conor Benn, which you're very much open to?
Yeah, of course. I don't think he'll get down to 147. He's been campaigning at 154 for the last 3, 4 years. Once you go up, it's very hard to come back down. So, we've seen no evidence of him at 147 for a long time. Since he failed those drugs tests a long time ago. And yeah, we can make the fight happen at whatever weight when it comes around. But I've got my eyes on running towards world title dreams at 147 pounds myself.
When I last spoke to you in Ireland, the potential was that you'd be taking on Regis Prograis. You're now taking on Josh Wagner. But what happened with Prograis in that time between announcing Wagner?
I think both sides like the fight, and it's down to my promoters on getting getting these type of things in place. And I guess they went for another option, and yeah, I guess it's a better step, because Wagner is ranked in the top 15 with the IBF. So in terms of world title championship fights, it's a fight that makes sense.
In terms of Wagner and what you've seen of him, what your expectations are of him, what challenges does he pose to you inside the ring? What do you think you'll have to overcome to get the victory over him?
He's a tough challenger, top 15 in the world. all these guys can fight and all these guys have earned their position. I believe I'm a superior fighter, and I'm just going to go in there and show that on 21st of November.
When it comes to being back to back with your cousin Chris, and then the next weekend you coming out, does there a sense of pressure to perform and live up to the Eubank name because the eyes are on him, and then straight the next weekend straight onto yourself?
Definitely, there's always pressure. I put that pressure on myself to go in there and deliver, and be the best version of myself, and put myself in position to go to the top of the sport. That's a pressure that I love and a pressure that I go in there with every time, and it drives me forward to perform and to wield the Eubank name high.
The Eubank name gets a further extension with twins on the way, which means you'll be Uncle Harlem Eubank again. I imagine you must have been delighted when that news fell on your ears.
It's great news, isn't it? Twin boys, that's a real blessing. Um, I'm excited for Chris. I feel like he's ready for this next chapter in his life now. Yeah, what a gift that is.
You Chris is very private, and if you don't want to answer this, feel free not to. But what will that do to Chris to becoming a father, do you think?
I think it will really help shape him, and I feel like it always adds to your character, having children. It it brings a different side of you out, and I feel like that's gonna really, benefit Chris. So, I think it's great timing for him, and yeah, I'm excited.
Harlan, when it comes to kind of the family and things like that, I remember you saying that in the lead back to the first fight, everything kind of been brought together and you were having dinners and stuff and all kind of talking again. Has that maintained off of the back of the first fight into this one, and will that maintain further on, do you feel?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that, everyone, everyone's relationship in the family is, going from strength to strength, and it's great to see them, bonds, made stronger, and the whole scenario around the first fight definitely mended a lot of those bonds, and yeah, it's just about taking it forward and continuing in the same manner. So it's nice to see that's the case, and I'm sure it will continue to flourish.
Is it something that you felt was like missing in terms of the dynamic? Had you kind of seen that and thought like, oh, it was something that you'd wanted for a long time?
Um, I think every family goes through different things that can distance them in some regards, and it's always nice when different fractions from that grow closer together, and you see bonds be strengthened. It's always a nice thing to see, and it's just about maintaining them. The last time, a lot of the reason that it meant so much to the public that Senior was there as well is they could associate it with family stuff going on in their lives. It translates to everyone. In all walks of life. Everyone has certain things going on, and for them to come together, people really felt that. So it's something that's real that everyone can relate to, and it's great to see that from being inside the family unit that things are things are good and on the up, and relationships are being mended.
And finally, relaying this back to yourself, back out next week, in terms of the strength, in terms of yourself and being the full reflection of 100% version of Harlem Eubank, whatever that looks like, do you feel you're there? How far away do you feel you are from being the full version of the fighter that you want to be?
I think I'm always growing, but I feel like I'm I'm right there, ready to to win a world championship next year. I feel like next year will be my year, and now it's just about staying switched on and making sure that I go in there and set up 2026 with a emphatic performance, and announce myself and show that I'm ready to win a world championship in 2026.
Do you feel like you're missing out a little bit because you got to train when you can't be here this week?
Of course, but listen, boxing is all about sacrifice. You have to sacrifice where you want to be and what you want to be doing for for what you need to do, in order to get to where you want to be, and that is the sacrifice we will have to go through. And yeah, I'm experiencing that this weekend.
Unlucky, pal. Well, hopefully that all pays off for you. Looking forward to seeing you back out in action next week. Thanks for seconds out, Harlem.
Nice one, man.
Appreciate it.